Welcome back, Officers Republic. Sir Corson Underworld Police Chief APGAINS. We're doing a big series that this is kind of maybe the first preliminary episode of. We get lots of questions about a lot of the more early game teams that come to the game or that have been in the game for a long time. We do lots of coverage of new teams that come to the game and mid-game concepts and stuff like that. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be pumping out a metric expletive ton of early game content. I don't mean early game like 2-3 million. I mean like first 1 to 1.5 million, pre-level 85, really getting people on the ground floor, understanding core concepts, core teams, and figuring all that stuff out. So I wanted to start with something that's like totally random and not something that it should really be its own video, but we can take a couple of minutes to talk about it. We all know the concepts of the core teams that we should be watching, and if not, we're doing a video that I've recorded, but I might re-record and kind of put out, giving you a graphic, a nice, well-made graphic to illustrate everything. But one of the teams that I frequently see when I do these hundreds of roster reviews, literally probably easily over 10,000 over the last 4-ish years, but like just an absolute metric fuck ton, is the bounty hunters. In any iteration of whether you go Aura Snipe or you go just standard Bosk, like pre 1 million GP, recovery, max banner, high GAC efficiency, whichever version of the team you use, I oftentimes find that even when people are following the guide, this is one that they leave out quite often. I would say to an incredibly high degree. People love to throw in extra auxiliary teams and the rest of the core, and they love the people generally do a pretty good job at, kind of building good rosters, obviously, but I kind of want to argue a little min-maxing here, and kind of have their back. Let's just open a new squad here. So in the early iteration of your first ever GACs, obviously Bosk is a very good early Zeta. And the reason he's a good early Zeta, and we'll cover this in many more of our early game videos, is he provides recovery. So even if you're not doing the Aura Snipe, the Aura Zam, Mando, nonsense snipe team, allowing you the opportunity to recover health and protection when applying debuffs is good, because in early GACs, assuming you're strong enough relative to your opponent, because money-based matchmaking, your opponents are oftentimes going to be a lot stronger than you, having the advantage in the very, very, very small number of battles that are taking place. 3 offensive battles plus 1 ship. Banners are at a massive premium, infinitely more so than they are much later in the game, where there's so many other opportunities to equal out the banners and get holds here. And there's so many other opportunities for you to kind of make up that efficiency later in GACs. But in the first couple, where you only have 3 offense, 3 defensive teams, having, the core teams of the offensive side of the board, which we'll talk about in other videos, but Bosk is one of them, they can finish with undersized max banners is incredibly important. So even just for that, I think a lot of players in the early sub 1 million, sub 1.5 million, even sub 2 million GP range are really missing out on a core and very valuable addition, just simply based on the fact that you are going to get undersized max banners, and when you only have 3 offensive teams, that's going to be at a massive premium. Usually there's like some sort of random hodgepodge of just nonsense that gets thrown together, but when they're strong enough, essentially because you're going to be putting gear into Bosk and Django, they might be relatively strong relative to teams you're fighting. They do great stuff. In the final iteration is obviously the Aura Snipe team. This team is one of, if not the most flexible of any team that is in the game. It's not like a Star Killer or a Galactic Legend where like you're just going to beat everything because there's pure power, but for very, very low investment and hopefully an Omicron, one of the earlier Omicrons you should be applying, this team is a absolute necessity, post 1.52 million GP-ish, because so many times you're going to come across characters, whether it's a Malik or a Darth Revan or I know a lot of them are Sith Empire, because this is kind of like a direct Sith Empire counter team. And for a lot of people, like this is how you're beating a lot of Darth Revan's early game. Usually it's Bosk lead because all their debuffs kind of help fuel the health, the recovery, and then eventually Mando can snipe people. Even without Mando, you have some viability there. Or just outspeeding them with Aura lead and getting a snipe off on Darth Revan before they're able to do anything and taking advantage that way. But in a sphere where counters to higher end early to mid game teams are limited, gas counters are limited, why you need CLS. Darth Revan counters are limited, why you need, bounty hunters. This team is just so unbelievably flexible. You need to kill a gas. You're going to have to mod a certain way, but you're going to be able to snipe a gas out. You have a leftover nest that you really can't deal with, or a nest team that you're 1.75 million GP and there's a Relic 7 nest on defense and you're saying, holy shit, what am I going to do to beat this nest? I have no idea what I'm doing. This is where that comes in. It's just such a flexible team that even if there isn't a character that needs to be sniped, just having the opportunity to go in against a Grievous and snipe a Grievous. Any team where there's one character that just kind of holds the whole squad together, and if they were out of the picture, it would be very easy to kind of deal with. This team is incredibly flexible in that regard. Fantastic, obviously, for cleanups. I think you guys kind of get the point that this, in any iteration of this, the Bounty Hunters are one of the most underutilized and underrepresented teams in early to mid-game Grand Arenas, simply because maybe they're just not talked about enough. I used to sing their praises all the time, and then I was noticing higher rates in early to mid-game players of having this team and having this team at an efficient level, efficient gear, efficient relic, especially with Omicrons, and there was effectiveness, and then I kind of stopped talking about it, and now you don't see it as much. As an honorable mention, even just if we're staying in the category of bounty hunters, you oftentimes, how many times pre-Datacrons and occasionally post-Datacrons is Fennec countering Lord Vader and, giving you the offensive capability. So, even if you find yourself in a situation where you're using, a Bosk-led team and maybe you don't have Boba for whatever reason, you have Zam, even in situations like this, allowing you to get boss contracts super fast and having the speed and having the annihilate and having the damage, this team does wonders all over the GAC map. It does wonders everywhere. Not so much on defense, unfortunately, though there are some cheeky 3v3 teams with Bosk, Zam, and Dangar, and a couple of Datacrons that just are super fucking annoying, especially early mid-game. They're going to get you holds simply because players are just... They drastically underestimate the recovery on that team and how annoying and debuff heavy it is. It's not going to kill your team. It's not going to get one of those holds where they just blow you out of the water. But oftentimes you can find early mid-game situations where that team is going to get you a hold simply based on they can't die because Dengar's glitched, and there's just this fun mechanic that works there. So kind of a new series coming out. If you have early to mid-game questions, I think I'm going to leave them more in the super early, sub 2 million GP range. If you have sub 2 million GP range questions, let me know. We're going to do a huge series. We're just going to get back. I'm going to call it back to basics or something like that. Call it back to basics, I guess. And really put our nose to the grindstone and get a lot of the education out there for those early game players, because a lot of them are coming in and a lot of them are kind of moving in not the greatest direction. So we're kind of trying to rein some people back in and make sure that we do some good stuff. So thank you for watching. As always, I love you, and I'll see you later.